morning, everybody.
Good morning, Mr. Jones.
How are we doing today?
All is well.
All is well. Outstanding.
Same as always.
Things are always well with you.
Yeah.
That's a great saying. All right. We got a lot to go over.
This is about anxiety disorder.
That's everything.
What is today?
That's everything for this chapter.
Today.
Today and tomorrow. I'm
Great.
here today and Thursday. All right. So, as you can see, I've handed you out a sheet that has the terms you need to know for our new chapter that we're starting today, psychological disorders. It's so much information. This usually takes up 3 classes, but we don't have 3 classes. So, to save time, you now don't have to write down terms. Even though I like you guys writing stuff down, because for some of you it helps you to remember when you write it down. But this way, you don't have to worry about that. We don't have to stop. I don't have to wait. And we can just keep going. Now, if you have questions, feel free to ask. But this way, we can just discuss. You can write on that. You can still make notes in your notebook or on your computer. You can still do that as well. But this will save us a lot of time. This will give us about 15 minutes to our class, which is needed. All right, before I get any further, let's get some positivity in the air. Let's see, who wants to share something positive that you've experienced since we've relaxed together, or something that you're grateful for?
Well, I checked through my grades and the midterm assessment.
Everything's in there, right?
Yeah. The bad news is the test number 3 I didn't do so well.
But it's most important that you do the quizzes.
Yeah.
You can get 50s on the test, 50s. But if you do all the quizzes, you can get a B out of the class. That's maybe even an A. But I'm glad you're grateful that that stuff is in. Sydney, I haven't heard from you in a while. How you been? I feel like we haven't talked. Did something happen?
No. Never.
Something grateful or something cool that's happened since you were last here?
I went up Stone Mountain.
You went somewhere? In the tram? Or
No, I walked it. I always walk it.
Oh, okay. Well, some people.
No, that's cheating.
Okay. You walk it, you run it?
I walk it.
Yeah, it's tough to run. Anybody ever went up Stone Mountain? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
That's it? That's it? Only 3 people went up Stone Mountain? Wow. It's a really good workout. It's a really good workout. And then when you get up there, you got a wonderful view. And if you feel so inclined, you can always take the tram, the car back down if you want to walk. Because it's kind of challenging walking down there. Certain spots. And don't do it when it's raining or when the rocks are wet. Please don't do that. Don't ever try to do it wrong. All right, so we need to get right to it. Let me go through the announcements. As I already mentioned, we're starting a new chapter today, chapter 12, psychological disorders. A very fascinating chapter. We have one of those sheets at the end. Right there. This is one of my favorite chapters. This is where we will be discussing and examining a lot of the major psychological disorders. We're talking depression, anxiety, PTSD, ADHD. We're going to hit all those eating disorders, personality disorders. And that's why, once again, I printed this stuff out. Because there's so much. Like, you would have a lot of writing to do, and we don't have enough time, because normally this chapter usually requires 3 classes. And we don't have 3 classes, because the semester is about to be over. This is the last month of school. And this is it. So, there's that. As Saeed has already pointed out, your engagement assignment is in the blackboard, as well as the midterm assessment assignment. Those are both done. And speaking of assignments, next Monday, November 10th, your next quizzes are due. Chapter 11, Health Psychology, which we just finished, and this chapter, Psychological Disorders. Please, get them done. A lot of times it's not how you start the race, it's how you finish. Let's finish strong.
Yes, sir.
I'm saying, don't be like, oh, I'm not going to worry about doing these because I did it earlier. I did most of them for the semester. No, go ahead and knock these out too. All right, so let's get right into Chapter 12, psychological disorders. As I mentioned before, a couple of times throughout the semester, if one of your classmates decides to disclose some personal information, we keep that in this room, we keep that confidential. Someone might say, hey, I've struggled with this, or I've struggled with that, or my mother, or my uncle, or my brother, or my sister. Let's keep it in here. All right, so what are we going to be looking at? We're going to define what a psychological disorder is. We have one of those sheets right there. No, sheet on the desk, right on the floor. Take one of those. What is psychological disorder? We're going to talk about anxiety-related disorders, depressive disorders, including bipolar, schizophrenia, dissociative, personality, and eating disorders. We're going to hit all of that. We're going to hit it kind of quick. All right. Before we dive into the meat of this subject, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but just because you're a student, you have access to mental health resources here. Unless they changed it, there's something called UWIL.
Is there medical aid here in this?
Pardon?
Is there medical aid here in this college?
Not here. We used to have 2 therapists that worked here full time that was available for you guys. As a matter of fact, I probably could have took that position myself. But we don't have that anymore. So now they have something called UWIL. And what it is, you can get therapy as long as you're a student here. As long as you're a student. And it's confidential, it's virtual therapy, so you don't have to go to an office. And you can get up to 4 sessions. So it's basically short-term counseling, okay? There's a number, you can call, and also at the bottom I listed whether it's you or someone you hear about who's really struggling, maybe feeling suicidal, 988. That's the National Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. It used to be a full number, they shortened it, just 988. And then we also have something locally, we have the Georgia Crisis and Access Line. That number is there, but if you or someone you know is in a really intense situation, a severe crisis when it comes to mental and emotional health, you or encourage that loved one to go to the ER. There is help available for people. The crisis line and the Georgia line, those are 24 hours. Those are 24 hours, 7 days a week. Somebody's gonna pick up. That's it. Like I said, you can get some free therapy here through this UWIL program. Okay? Put that out there before we start talking about all these diagnoses. Because it's going to be really tempting to try to self-diagnose. I get it. I totally get it. You're going to be like, maybe I have that. Maybe she has that. Maybe that's my dad's issue. I understand, but if it's for you personally, try to avoid self-diagnosing and go see a professional to find out for certain if that is your condition or what you're dealing with, okay? Now, also, too, you need to know, just because a person has a diagnosis, that doesn't mean that their life is less than. That doesn't mean they're not going to be able to accomplish as much. It don't mean any of that. We all have stuff we have to deal with in life, whether you have a diagnosis or not. Nobody's family is perfect. So we all go through life really trying to overcome our upbringing, because there are no perfect parents. And there's no perfect society. There's no perfect neighborhoods. There's no perfect nation. Some of us, this person may deal with severe depression, but this person grew up in severe poverty. This person may be dealing with anxiety, but this person is losing their vision, and they're going blind. We all have stuff we need to try to navigate and find our way through, okay? And to help with that, and help normalize that, I'm also going to show you pictures of people who have some of these conditions that we're going to be talking about. Okay? All right, let's move on. We need to first define abnormality. So, because that's what psychologists have been trying to do for the longest time. In other words, they're trying to define what is abnormal behavior. Like, what the heck is that? And there have been many attempts. And people consider abnormal behavior to be something that's different from everybody else, or something that produces a level of discomfort, or inability to function effectively. Some people use it as a legal concept, but generally, abnormal behavior is when people are experiencing distress, or they're struggling, and it affects their daily lives.
What does abnormal behavior mean?
Just means you're experiencing distress, but it won't be a term on the test. So mindset. Everything you need for the test is already printed out for you. So abnormal behavior is basically, if there's a condition that you have and it's affecting your daily life. Some people are dealing with depression, but you know what? They can still go to work, they can still go to school, they still hang out with their friends, and they're fine. So they may not get that may not be considered abnormal behavior. But if their depression is so severe they can't get out of bed, they can't eat, they don't have an appetite, or all they do is eat, or their relationships are falling apart, now you're talking abnormal behavior. You're talking about a condition where they may need some help. Okay, so now we get to psychological disorders. Now, it's considered when people's thoughts, their emotions, or their behavior is causing an issue. That's what they really consider psychological disorders. Now, what's funny, over time, the definition or what people consider a psychological disorder has changed. For example, homosexuality used to be classified as a psychological disorder. It was, showing how things have changed. There's a lot of conditions that okay, maybe that's not what we thought it was. So homosexuality is no longer considered or classified a disorder. So what can cause a psychological disorder? Well, there's different things. One section says biological influences. We've talked about how you can inherit things from your parents or your grandparents, depression, anxiety, alcoholism. You can inherit certain genes. Your brain may be structured a certain way that makes you more susceptible to getting one of these diagnoses. So biological factors can lead to a psychological disorder. Other psychological influences: stress, trauma, learned helplessness, a term we talked about last week, where you feel like there's no use. Mood-related perceptions and memories. So our memories, our trauma, our stress, those can cause us to experience a psychological disorder. And then finally, social influences. It says roles, expectations. That means, like, depending on what culture you're from, or what your society is like, or even what your neighborhood is like, could be causing you stress. Imagine if you're from a Middle Eastern country and you're a woman, and you don't want a prearranged marriage. You want to find your own person to love and spend your life with, but your parents are insistent. No, we got you covered. We have a husband for you. That's a social cultural influence that could be causing that woman stress. Understandably so, unless she's down with the parents and arranged marriage thing. So all of those things can lead to psychological disorders. Now, unfortunately, some people can have issues from more than one of these areas. So then it becomes even more to deal with. Okay? Now, these are different perspectives on abnormality. We don't really have time for that. But this is already, by the way, if you came in late, hopefully you got a sheet. This is the first thing that is on that sheet. What is it? There is a book that if you go see a therapist or a psychiatrist, somewhere in that office, this book exists. It might even be in some doctor's office. The book is called The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Health, currently in its 5th edition. What this book is, it's used by most professional clinicians and doctors to classify or define a psychological disorder. Consider it the Bible of mental health. I brought mine with me. It is a big book. You could knock somebody out with this book. It's heavy.
Is it from the Mayo Clinic?
I'm sure they have one at the Mayo Clinic. I'm sure they have one there. When you go see a therapist or psychiatrist, they're going to have to give you a diagnosis. Definitely if you have insurance, because insurance claims, they want to know, well, what the diagnosis is. And then they're going to want a code. And different numbers mean different things. So like I'm looking at anxiety. So separation anxiety disorder, the code for that is F93.0. And then it'll explain the symptoms to see how many of these traits that you have. So let's say for separation anxiety, maybe there might be 12 things here, and you don't need all 12 to get that diagnosis. Maybe you probably only need about 7. They go, well, you know what? She has 7 of these. I'm diagnosing her separation anxiety disorder, F93.0. And it gets all into details about the different traits and symptoms, all in this book.
What number am I?
What do you mean, what number? I don't know, probably multiple numbers. There are people who get more than one diagnosis. So they get depression or mood disorder or eating disorder. And they, whatever that is, that goes in the book. I mean, it goes on the paperwork, on the documentation, and or insurance company. Yes, sir. I don't know. Personality disorders. And it's usually, the numbers are really codes. That's all they're just code numbers. Paranoid personality. It's in. I don't know. You can pass it around. I'll let you guys pass it around. But it's kind of heavy though. But I'm still. And about so the edition you have right now, this was released in 2022. That's why it's called the TR, text revision. They usually update that book about anywhere from once every 8 to 15 years, because they see they need to make some changes. For example, an older version of that book, you mentioned autism there, an older version of the book, autism used to be defined in 2 different categories. They used to call it autistic, and then they used to call it Asperger's. Asperger's was considered high-functioning autism. That's in an older book like that. But they were like, you know what? Why are we separating? Let's just call it the autism spectrum disorder. So it's a wide range, so we got rid of that. A term you might have heard, ADD, attention deficit disorder. They kind of got rid of that. They just put that under the category of ADHD, attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So they make these modifications, like at one point, gambling is in that book somewhere. It used to be in that book. So like I said, so a whole bunch of psychologists and doctors and stuff, they get together and they decide, well, what do we need to update it here? And they make the change. And then they make us professionals have to go out and buy the book. It's not that cheap.
So gambling is considered a psychological?
Hmm?
So gambling is considered a disorder?
Because it's a type of addiction. And addictions are in that book. Everything from gambling to sex, those are all considered addictions. And it's an addiction when it interferes with your normal daily life. You can gamble and not be addicted to gambling. And you won't get that diagnosis. Yeah, I go sometimes, I go to the riverboat, I gamble a little bit, do a little slots. But if you're to the point where you're spending money you don't have, you're jeopardizing the safety and well-being of your family, you have a diagnosable condition now. Because it is affecting your daily life. If a person has a sexual addiction, and to the point where they can't even go out the door without having sex or self-pleasure, and they're losing jobs because of that, yeah, that's a problem. You're gonna have a diagnosis. Because it is affecting or impacting your normal life, your ability to function day by day. Now, supposedly with that book, it tries to predict the course of the disorder. It may suggest treatments for that disorder. It may encourage research to be done. This book is pretty much, it's in other countries as well. And like I said, it requires a certain number of boxes to be checked before you get that diagnosis. But that book, I promise you, you go see a therapist, you go see a psychiatrist, they got that book somewhere. Because they're doing an insurance paperwork like they have to. Now, I'm not a fan of diagnosing somebody the first time I see them, but I don't have a choice. Literally, the first time you go see a therapist, they have to give you a diagnosis. especially if they need to submit an insurance.
Used by
They don't have
most
a choice. So
professionals.
they, based upon what you're saying and what they're seeing during that first 50-minute session, they're going to give you a diagnosis. And if you want, you can ask them, hey, what are you diagnosing me with? You can ask them. Or you may have an idea. I'm sure you're diagnosing me with
Classified,
depression, right?
classified.
Yes, Jack. Yes, he did. He just did. No, his paperwork, his documentation, whether he does use a paper file with a file cabinet, or he does his documentation online, you have a diagnosis. He has to give you. There's no choice. You have to. No, you have a diagnosis. So, now, some people aren't a fan of this book. Now, because they feel like when you label somebody, first of all, you diagnose them after one visit. But secondly, you're labeling somebody. And is that gonna be a positive or a negative? Are other people gonna find out about their diagnosis? So some people don't, and sometimes these labels stick with people forever. So that's why some people are not a fan. But the benefits of the book, it allows other mental health professionals to talk to other professionals. Like sometimes I do a consult with another therapist who's working with this person. Or maybe if I get a client who, for example, they were at a treatment facility. But when you go to a treatment facility, oftentimes, especially if it was dealing with suicide, they want to release you to another therapist. They don't want you just, okay, you were with us for 2 weeks in this mental health hospital, now we're just releasing you. They want to know, who's your therapist? Okay, well, we need to get you a therapist. You need to get one, you need to find one. And then that way, and then once that happens, both me and the facility can communicate once there's been release paperwork. We can communicate, we can say, hey, well, they received this diagnosis according to the DSM-5 of this. So now that helps us to communicate with one another. So, all right, let's start getting into some of these conditions. These are some of the groups or categories of disorders. Now, so what this means, so you say anxiety, there's a bunch of disorders that fall under the heading of anxiety. And then there's a bunch of disorders that fall under mood and personality. There's different, just think, there's an umbrella and there's conditions that fall under that umbrella. That's all I want you to know for now. Okay, we're starting, the first umbrella we're gonna look at is anxiety disorders. These are all conditions that fall under or associated with anxiety disorders. Excuse me, there's 3 major types of anxiety disorders, and you'll see them on your sheet. There's generalized anxiety disorder, which is
Signs of anxiety.
called GAD, GAD, specific phobia, and then panic disorder. Gift for you. So let's look at each one of these and discuss. First one, generalized anxiety disorder. That is the experience of long-term, persistent, or consistent anxiety and worry. That means a person given this diagnosis, they just worry pretty much all the time and been doing it for a long time. Now, we all worry about stuff. Remember, it's not considered diagnosable unless it impacts your daily life. So if a person is worrying all the time and it makes them not leave their house, it makes them stress themselves out, then that's diagnosable. People with this condition tend to, maybe they have muscle tension, maybe they have headaches, dizziness, maybe their heart races, maybe they have trouble sleeping. This needs to last or have been present for at least 6 months to get this diagnosis. So if a person has been dealing with this for like 3 weeks, they're not going to get that diagnosis. They haven't had it long enough. Need at least 6 months. Interestingly, 2/3 of the women, 2/3 of the people with this condition are women. Ladies, why is that? Why do the majority of people who have this condition, why are they women? Ladies, anybody have any idea?
Women naturally emotional.
Women are definitely considered to be more emotional, and so maybe that is to Anxiety, anybody else? Why do you think women are 2/3 more likely to deal with this condition?
2/3 more likely to have children.
That's true, but all women don't have children? What about the ones, most of the women in here don't have children? Yes.
I'd say probably due more to historical factors, especially with as recent as like the early 1900s. In general, women in society were largely valued because of their ability to have children. And as they got older, or basically their value sharply declined because you can't have kids anymore, and due to men naturally being physically superior, they couldn't do the hard labor which was required at that time. So naturally, the women who were worried about that, especially in their younger years, were probably more likely to survive and pass their genes on, which then pass that on to their children.
Passing on the gene for anxiety.
Yeah, pretty much.
That may be true. I don't think there's one real answer. I think there's a bunch of different factors. That may be one of them. Maybe the women have to deal with more than men. I don't know, James.
Not all of them, but a lot of them feel women. So I think it's just like, I don't know, fitting in, like trying to look good, and if they don't look, they feel like they don't look good enough. So they're mentally.
I mean, concerns about physical appearance and the time it takes to get gussied up, make their role. I think in general, women just typically have more on their plate than trying to deal with it. Men, if we have too much on our plate, at some point, excuse my bluntness, we go F it. At some point, some of the things on our plate, we're like, screw it, it's out there. I'm tired of dealing with this, I'm tired of dealing with that person. Women tend to want to fix and solve things a little bit more. They tend to deal with things more. They tend typically, usually in most households, who does the bulk of the parenting? Male or female, typically. I mean, I'm sure there's exceptions. And women tend to do the bulk of the parenting, and in today's world, they also work. Who tends to do most of the cleaning in the house? The male or the man or women? They seem to have a lot more on their plate, and thank goodness, I'm glad I'm a man, because that whole getting pregnant and carrying a child for 9 months, I'll pass. That might be stressful too. I don't know, I can't relate, nor would I want to, but it just seems like that alone would create some anxiety, just knowing now you're paranoid about your health, now you gotta worry about the health of the unborn child. So those with this condition may struggle with even finding relief. They may struggle with finding a way how to deal with it, and it could lead to physical issues such as high blood pressure, because anxiety is just typically what leads to stress. So but like men deal with it too, but women definitely seem to apparently do it a lot more. All right, so let me go on. You write something? Still writing? All right. Let's look at our first group of celebrities. These are actual people who you may or may not know who deal with anxiety. They give you a diagnosis. The young lady at the top, that is Megan Thee Stallion. She's I guess hip hop R&B artist. In 2022, she wrote a song called Anxiety. And she opened up about being a bad bee with bad anxiety. And she ends up saying, apparently in the song, all I really want to hear is, it'll be okay. Right underneath her, we have royalty. Prince Henry. He experienced severe anxiety and even panic attacks, which we will get into panic attacks, because panic attacks falls under the umbrella of anxiety. He said before he even left the house for royal engagements, he was pouring in sweat and his heart was racing. He disclosed this on a docuseries on Apple TV, The Me You Can't See. And finally, the guy to the right, Marvel fans know him as who? Who is that with beard? Marvel fans.
That's Chris Evans.
That's Chris Evans, that's Captain America, come on. haircut.
No, they could have done better on Marvel and DC to make them both more better and stronger and best than ever in the past.
Captain America, he's one of my favorites. Chris Evans, he made a video with Motivational Madness about his tips for coping with anxiety. Anybody, he's a big time celebrity, big time star. These are famous people dealing with anxiety. Still getting on with their life, still accomplishing goals. All right, let's move on. Still under the heading of anxiety disorder, and it should be next on your sheet, specific phobias. A specific phobia. That is an intense, and this is the key part, irrational fear of specific objects or situations. Now, like I said, the key word is irrational. If I brought in a worm in this room right now, and some of you are like, ugh, why are you holding that foot-long worm? Like, ugh.
You okay?
That's one thing. But if somebody got up and ran out the classroom, oh my God, I can't stand worms, they freak me out. That response could be considered a little on the irrational and intense side. So that individual would probably be given a diagnosis of a specific phobia. And there's so many different types. I mean, fear of strangers, fear of heights, fear of... Matter of fact, I'm gonna pull up a slide that shows the different things that we can be afraid of. Now, I'm curious. If I brought a snake in this room, like a 9-foot boa constrictor or something, or maybe go 6 feet, how many of you would probably want to leave? Yes?
I'm leaving.
You're leaving the room?
Yeah.
Who else is leaving? Like you're leaving the classroom.
I'm leaving the school.
You
I'm going home.
you're gonna be in another half of the school.
I'm going home.
You're going home. Is anybody else leaving because I bring a 6-foot snake in here?
I'd wrestle it.
You wrestle it? Okay. See, yeah, if I brought it in. Yeah. So, what if I brought in a tarantula?
Oh, no. I don't know. I looked at it.
Who's just pass it? I'm just letting people take a look at it, whoever wants to see it. Who's leaving if I bring in a tarantula about the size of my hand? Who's leaving?
Did you know tarantulas have paws?
Well, I'm saying the size.
Pause, that's cool.
Yeah, they have paws, like dogs.
You know, I'm gonna tell you an interesting story about a tarantula that I had.
Yeah.
First of all, I don't like spiders. I don't like small spiders. I'm being honest with you, but I'm not gonna freak out. If some spiders, if they're in my house, I just catch it and release it. You need to get out of my house. I'm not gonna kill it. Yeah. A brown recluse has to die. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. That's a poisonous snake. I'm sorry. When it comes to me or the creature, I got to choose me. I once had a client. This is wrong because this was very manipulative. What he did, this was mentally and emotionally manipulative, and I knew what he was doing.
To you?
Yeah, let me tell you what he did. This was probably our second or maybe third session. He brought his pet tarantula with him to the session. In a plastic container like this, he brought his tarantula. And then he said, don't you want to pet it or touch it? I said, no, I'm good. I'm good. Then he tries to manipulate and do a little guilt trip. But if you touch it, it'll show that I can trust you as my therapist. That's manipulation. Yeah, it is. It was. Yeah, it was. He was like, please, it just means so much to me. I'm literally, this is a young man who's probably, he was like your age. He was probably like 24. Who's touching the spider if that was your client? Who's touching this?
I would.
Are you touching it?
Anything that's here. I would. I love tarantulas.
Now, despite me knowing he was really being manipulative, I did not want to do it, but I was like, fine. I wanted to get on with the session. He said, fine. Yeah, I touched it. I gave in and I touched it. I need to get on with the session. The topic, I'm trying to help him therapeutically. I can't be focused on the debating whether I should be needing to touch the spider to show that I'm committed to you, that this is safe. The look on your faces, what's going on? What's that facial thing? Seems like mine.
How did it feel?
It felt like nothing else I've ever touched. If you've never touched a tarantula, it has this weird, because its hairs are kind of sticking up. It has all these bunch of thousands of hairs that stick up, but they have a weird feel to them. So it's like,
It's like a weird texture.
yeah, I can't even describe it. It's like prickly, but not pointy, but not sharp. But it's just, I don't plan on touching one again. So, but I'm sure you can go to a pet store who sells exotic animals, and you can pet a tarantula for your own. I'm sure. I mean, I don't know where exotic pet stores are here in Georgia, but I'm sure that there are some.
No, I remember someone lost a tree.
But yeah, I like I said, I didn't appreciate it. I knew what was going on. And Ashton, what's wrong with you?
Nah, this is funny.
Are you touching the spider?
Yeah, I probably will.
Okay. All right. James?
I don't know, I don't like the fact that
You don't like it like that?
that's just my opinion.
No. I respect your opinion. Trust me. If this room had 100 therapists, 50 therapists in this room would have been like, no, I'm not doing that, and I wouldn't have fell for that. And the other therapist would have been like, fine, just to move on with it.
Well, it's not just that if you didn't want to, but it was giving in to him,
It was. I don't know. It was. It was.
but you allowed that to happen to move on to better things.
That's exactly. Now, we can discuss that later on, but like I said, he hadn't even been my client that long. So we need to move on. So if he feels like, fine, okay. So now I guess I have your trust now.
Now I can help you.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. So let's talk about some of these other phobias. These are the most common phobias. Now here's the thing. There's a difference between a fear and a phobia. Some of us are afraid of heights, but you'll still go in an airplane. That means it's a fear, it's not a phobia. If you have a phobia about heights, you're not flying. You're not doing it. You're driving, you're taking a train, you're doing a bus, you're not doing it. Or you gotta be heavily medicated to get on that plane. That's a phobia. So you have here the most common fears and the most common phobias. So can you see what the most common fear is? On it, it's height. More people are afraid of height than a lot of other things. But then, and simultaneously, a lot of people, it's a phobia. Some people have a fear of animals, enclosed spaces. My sister, you put her in the back seat of a two-door car, she's going to freak. Get me out of here. I gotta go. I can't do this. That's that fear of enclosed spaces. Some people are afraid of blood. There's this show on HBO called The Pit. It's a show about an ER hospital in Pittsburgh. And the first episode, they get these new med students. And the first day the med student, she saw a bunch of blood, she passed out. That's not good to be a doctor and you pass out precise blood. That's not a good combo. That may affect your career. Some people are afraid of water. Some people have a phobia of water. When I say water, that usually means like the oceans, lakes, large bodies of water. Storms, flying, being alone. So, and this is just a survey from some people in Dutch. Surveyed Dutch people to identify what they were struggling with. So now let's talk about panic disorders, which, anybody come in late who didn't get a sheet with the terms in it? Okay, good. See, I'm gonna see if we can move along without you guys having to write stuff down. Of course, if you wanna write stuff down. Panic disorders, still under the umbrella of anxiety. We're still talking about anxiety stuff. A panic disorder, it takes the form of a panic attack it can last a few seconds,
That takes the
or it can last for several hours. Physical experiences may come along, like chest pains, shortness of breath, trembling, dizziness,
lasting for
or some
the
other
seconds to
frightening
seconds.
sensation. A lot of people deal with panic attacks. They're stressed out, wondering when are they going to have the next panic attack. And anything could trigger, or nothing could trigger. They can be sitting, all of a sudden, their heart starts pounding fast, palms start getting sweaty, they get dizzy, person pass out. Once again, they never know when the next one is gonna happen. That must be a very uncomfortable diagnosis to be subjected to panic disorder, or the term you might be more familiar with is having a panic attack. One of the fears and phobias that wasn't listed on the screen, and it is probably one of the biggest fear and phobia that people have. Anybody know what it is? It wasn't on that list, on that slide. A lot of people have a fear of public speaking. Some people have a phobia of public speaking. Some people would freak out before they step on the stage and talk to a lot of people.
Something that I found interesting about a lot of phobias correlates with a personal theory of mine that a lot of human behavior can be stemmed back to tribal societies and basically like humans like hunting in packs, like fighting woolly mammoths. Because like fear of animals, well, an animal could easily kill you. Fear of water, most humans probably didn't know how to swim. Fear of being alone, if you are separated from the tribe, that was practically a death sentence.
I think our historical fears and panics probably do come from our ancestors, who constantly had to live in a state of heightened alertness. Regardless of what race you are, black, white, whatever, our ancestors, they were about to survive, they had to survive. So they had to live in fear. They didn't live in caves because they wanted to live in caves, they lived in caves because they thought it would be safe. They had huts, they had fires, they used fire to protect themselves. So they constantly had to stay alert and afraid. And I would imagine if you're by yourself and you know, wow, there's a lion that just came to the village.
Something I think a lot of people forget is that society, in the grand scheme of things, is actually a very recent invention, especially one that is as safe as the current one we live in.
Yeah, I mean, our world now is probably safer. I mean, clearly our world is safer than back then. I mean, you could, our ancestors, you could get bit by anything and die.
I mean, that was even true, even during the Civil War.
Yeah.
You stub your toe, you get an infection, it's probably GG for
That's
you.
even as recent as the Vietnam War. A lot of people, they were in the jungles of Vietnam. They had, I mean, insects and snakes. And one thing bites you, you could be done. So, now of course, like I said, there's different triggers. Let's look at some celebrities who have panic disorders. Let's see if you recognize any of these. The top guy with the glasses, Stephen Colbert, the star of The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. He apparently started having panic attacks in his late 20s. Underneath him, a very popular singer. I'm not a fan, but I'm sure she can sing. Adele. She actually has performance anxiety, which is really interesting because she's an entertainer. And this is something that she says she's even had to deal with on tour. Quote unquote, I'm scared of audiences. She mentioned that in a Rolling Stone interview. Think about it. She's considered a superstar vocalist. And she admits she's scared of audiences. And then finally, to your right, a very popular actress today. Her name is Emma Stone. She has a long list of films. Her panic attacks were so intense as a child. As a child, she wrote her own little book about it. It was called I Am Bigger Than My Anxiety, to help her deal with what she was struggling with. Once again, you see people having a diagnosis and still having a fulfilling life, still achieving and accomplishing goals. All right. Many of you have heard the term PTSD.
Which we've already written down.
Which you already have written down. Post-traumatic stress disorder.
A phenomenon in which victims of major catastrophes or strong personal stressors feel long-lasting effects that can include re-experiencing the event in vivid flashbacks or dreams.
Exactly. So, PTSD is when something happened and it was so traumatic, the person is still dealing with it now. A lot of people will see combat. Of course, they deal with it. Dodging bullets and bombs and missiles, and they come back to the States or return home, and they're freaking out. They have flashbacks. They have dreams, they have nights, they break out in cold sweats. But it doesn't have to be war. You can be in a car accident. You can be mugged. There's so many different things that can cause you to experience post-traumatic stress disorder. My wife, we had been married for about 3 months. And I was coming out the gym. I think I did jiu-jitsu class. And I said, oh, my wife called me. I listened to the message. She says, I was just in a car accident. The car is totaled. I'm in the back of an ambulance on my way to Grady. That's the recorded message I got. I'm freaking out. But of course, I rush over to Grady, find out. She didn't, the only injury she sustained was she got a little burn on her arm from when the airbag deployed. So I guess there's some chemicals in that airbag, so that burned her arm a little bit. But her car was totaled. Now, I thought she was okay. She thought she was okay from a mental standpoint. But once she got another car, we found out she wasn't okay. For her, driving became an extremely difficult thing, and it was stressful. She wouldn't want to drive. She was experiencing PTSD. Her PTSD was so severe, even if she's in the car with me, and I'm the one driving, she's in the passenger side. If I look out of the corner of my eye, she was freaking out. She'd be like, you would see her foot breaking. At one point I looked over, she literally had tears in her eyes. The trauma of her accident was really affecting her big time. Fortunately, I was able to help her out because very recently I had attended a training that helps people deal with traumatic situations. And I remember the day I saw her crying, I was like, hey honey, there's this thing I learned a couple of weeks ago. If you want, we can try it and see if it helps you. So the next morning, I did this thing that I was trained to do. And in about 30 minutes, she was like, I feel okay now. And she was. And she's been driving since then. Yep. Well, tell you what, I'll explain it in detail next week when we get into treatment of psychological disorders. But it's something called rapid resolution, and it's the main goal of this intervention is to move the brain from the past to the present. Because when we're experiencing PTSD and trauma, it's like you're reliving it in the present. But there's things I do. My wife was the first person I did it. I have used it on many other clients because they had a traumatic. I've even helped some friends with it. Like everything from there's so many different situations I've used it to help people. Yes, ma'am.
So I was in an accident a handful of years ago, and still when I ride in a car, like if there's brick mailboxes, or like the curb, or like an oncoming car, like I will like flinch and like.
That's I would say that's some mild, not severe, but some mild PTSD because of that.
Yeah, like I just can't help. It's like when you bang your knee in the reflex, you know. It's like I can't help it, and like people get annoyed, and I try to like not do it, and sometimes I just can't not do it.
It's ingrained. So I would do an activity with the rapid resolution to help, so that didn't happen. Like I said, I've known people who've discovered loved one dead, people who the tree fell in their house and almost destroyed, almost killed them. Like I've used it on so many different types of people. And I'm always amazed when it works. People always, I feel something like, really? Like I'm literally amazed how many times it helps people. I'm amazed.
Since we're talking about PTSD, can I ask you, what is your opinion on PTSD related to anesthesia, like being put under?
That's different, and that's a little complex. It definitely can happen, because when you get put under anesthesia, I don't want to freak anybody. You must have had a bad reaction. Were you on that? Is this for you or somebody else?
Me.
Okay. So I don't want to freak anybody out. If you got to get put to sleep, have a procedure, you got to get put to sleep. But for some people, it can be a traumatic experience. Because so many factors. First of all, there's different ways that they put you under to do surgery. Sometimes they inject something in the bloodstream, sometimes they have to breathe something, so it's different. And everybody don't react to everything the same.
Do you believe that even though, like, for anesthesia, they're going under, like, for surgery, do you believe that even though your brain is off, your body keeps count? It knows what it's been through?
I believe in cellular memory. So I believe in the things that are happening. I had a surgery once, it was a knee surgery. And something happened. And I don't know what happened, but I knew as soon as, because you know when you have surgery, for those of you that know, the minute you go to the recovery room, they're trying to wake you up. They're like, Mr. Smith, wake up, Mr. Smith. Like they're trying to wake you up because they want to help you start coming out of the anesthesia as soon as possible. And they were trying to wake up, Mr. Jones, wake up, Mr. Jones. And I was just like, something's weird. I said, something's wrong, something happened here. And all the nurse would say is, well, you had a bad reaction to the anesthesia. That's all she would say. I don't know if they had a problem bringing me out of anesthesia. I don't know if I temporarily was dead. Like, I don't know. All I know is something weird happened, and I knew it. And she said, well, you did have a bad reaction. What does that mean? What in the world does a bad reaction to anesthesia mean? I didn't want to know, because I didn't want to figure it out. So I didn't ask any more questions. I was just glad I was awake. But it felt like something weird happened. Like out of body, I don't know if I was dead, like something happened. So, all right, OCD, better known as obsessive compulsive disorder. As you can see, there's two key words there, obsessive and compulsive. Obsession is a person that has these thoughts that keep happening. Compulsion is a behavior, like you feel compelled to do something. And so, people who have OCD, they can't help it. They simply can't help it. There's some people who have OCD, for example, who, let's say, for example, somebody who feels like, oh my God, my hands are never clean. A person who has OCD, they wash their hands, I don't know, 20, 50, 30 times over and over and over. So they feel like they can't get it clean enough. They're obsessed. You can tell them, your hands are clean. No, I gotta wash them again. Because they still, the obsession is my hands aren't clean enough. The compulsion is I have to keep washing my hands over and over. Now, I'm willing to admit, like I have some mild OCD. Just mild. I'm gonna tell you what my OCD looks like. I've gotten better with it. Like if I used to work in another office. When I left the office at night, I was usually the last one there. I would lock the door and then lock it again. And then just make sure it's locked, lock it again. Like, I knew it was locked, so like, I need to check this. There were times I will literally get in my car and go, well, before I drive off, I'll get out of my car and go check the door again. I'd already checked it 3 times. There are times I checked it, got in my car, drove away, went to the next street, and turned around and come back and check the door. The alarm on my car, I'm going to hit it more than once. Sorry. It's just on my kitchen counter. On my kitchen counter, say it's mild OCD. The things on my kitchen counter, the items like aftershave, Vaseline, lotion, whatever, it all has to be faced a certain way. The labels need to be faced this way, the front, the other way. Now, I'm not going to freak out. If somebody come in and rearrange it, I'm not going to be like, oh my God, what happened? Because it's just mild OCD. Now, if I had severe OCD and I came in and somebody rearranged my stuff, I would freak out. That's because now it's affecting, once again, when you get a diagnosis, if it affects your daily life or causes that type of response, it's worth a diagnosis. My little thing right there, my little thing, things being lined up a certain way, even in my closet, I need things, I can't have one item, this shirt facing this way and the other shirt facing the other way. No, that's not gonna work for me. I'm James, what do you think?
Well, I was just gonna say, you sound real close to how you, not, you know, myself, but, like, okay, let's say like that, I'm outside, you know, I'm just outside, come in, right, and I lock the door, and I'm walking away, I get this strong, not.
You gotta go check it.
Yeah.
I get it, I understand. I mean, I'm sure some of you in this room have some little weird quirks like that, right? Some unique things, unique patterns, locking doors repeatedly. Sometimes I just think, maybe it's a Chicago thing, because in Chicago, see here, you guys will leave your cars unlocked. I mean, some people. I don't get it, I be seeing things in my neighborhood, people are like, yeah, somebody got in my car. Is your car locked? No. Like, they feel like you just put your car in the carport, you don't have to lock the door. In Chicago, you don't, no, you don't play that. You
I
lock
hear
the
in
door.
some places it's actually so bad that that people, when they park their cars, they roll their windows down, not because they
don't want
think,
the glass broken.
yeah, so that way people just won't break the glass when they steal something.
Yep, I can't, in Chicago, you can't even, in Chicago, you can't even leave nothing that might appear to be tempting. They'll be like, is that a watch case? I don't know, but I'm about to find out. I smashed the window.
But I actually have a quick story about this. This, my mom told me that she experienced this. This lady, she got robbed, you know, and she bought the house and everything. And God was questioning her, like, how did she get robbed, you know. She left her keys in the car with her purse. Gone. Gone.
Sorry, I'm not shocked.
Gone.
You can't leave your keys and your purse in the car and expect them to not go in. I mean, you just asking to be robbed now. Like, you might put a cake and cookies, might put a tray of cookies in there too, and some glass of milk and stuff. Help yourself. I mean, so I'm gonna show you a quick video, because I think this is a question on your quiz too. Because I want you to see what obsessive compulsive looks like. Anybody familiar with Howie Mandel?
Who?
Howie Mandel.
He's the host, right?
He's one of the judges on America's Got Talent. He also did a show called Deal or No Deal. He's done some other stuff. He's done voice characters. I don't know if you guys, I actually used to work with Howie Mandel. He used to have a daytime talk show, and I worked on his show. I did a bunch of different things, and eventually became the announcer for the show. So I was the one going live from Studio One in Burbank, California. It's the Howie Mandel Show. Yeah. Howie has OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. He's what some people would consider a germ phobic, a germ freak, or germ phobic. So, and I know, and I worked with him. So Howie was not going to shake your hand. He was absolutely not. It feels like your hand has germs. There is no, absolutely not. And it's weird because he had a daytime talk show, which means he would have guests and they would come out and he would shake their hands. Well, people don't know, when he would sit down behind his desk, he had sanitizer and he was instantaneously sanitizing his hand. Once I was in the office, I think I sneezed or coughed, and Howie was in the next office, and I guess he heard that. He told his secretary, ironically, his secretary went on to become a big actress. His secretary is Paula Patton. I don't know if you know who the actress Paula Patton is. If you Google Paula Patton, you're like, oh yeah, I've seen her movies. Paula came and told me, Howie heard you sneeze. He wants you to know it's okay if you want to go home. Literally, it'll be okay. You won't be in trouble. You'll still get paid. You can go home. That's how he was. Like, for real. Like, it was intense. So don't sneeze, don't cough at him, don't do nothing, or you're gonna freak him out. So I'm gonna show you a quick video so you can actually see how intense that is, so you can see a little bit of what obsessional compulsion looks like.
It is a crippling and mysterious disease that makes everyday life a minefield for some 5 million Americans. OCD, or obsessive compulsive disorder. And one of those people is superstar comedian Howie Mandel. On stage, he makes millions of people laugh, but off stage, he can't shake hands with them, or touch a doorknob, or a glass, or even be with his own family at times. Here's David Muir.
It's 7 o'clock in the morning, and Howie Mandel arrives at the center deal or no deal. Almost immediately, he looks at the Howie Mandel, and he starts the secret for most of his career.
Handrails are my enemy. You never go near a handrail. I won't open those things. I would never serve myself. I wouldn't touch this because a lot of people have touched that. This is actually my nightmare.
Mandel has obsessive compulsive disorder, OCD.
I love this. Every door should just push on it.
His obsession, germs. An obsession made famous with his trademark fist bump.
And what's the difference between shaking the hand and fist bump? In my mind, this is a petri dish. Otherwise, I could spend a day and a half of my life in a bedroom rubbing, scrubbing, solving.
But as we were about to learn, Howie Mandel's OCD goes far beyond that fist bump. Off stage, it is all consuming.
Look, everything's brand new each day. That's normally how a workstation looks. Look at my stuff. All brand new, not hot.
Even Mandel's trademark bald head is this way by choice.
This feels so streamlined and so clean. Now, it feels cleaner.
Not even 8:30 in the morning, and we barely scratched the surface. Mandel was written a new book called Here's the Deal, Don't Touch Me, revealing his at times crippling struggle with OCD.
It's uncomfortable, and it's hard, and it's somewhat embarrassing. There were many times when I wanted to back out. I'm not somebody who sits down with strangers as I sit here. We can wait but it's not a movie with them.
Mandel's fans would never know just how deep it goes. Until now, the audience had only heard this. Backstage, it's the rush to the set. Howie Mandel has been on stage for 30 years now, first making his mark as a manic young comic from Toronto. There would be more than 20 appearances on this night show. Johnny Carson.
I've been carrying this for about 2 months now, so lucky your allies, but...
See, a lot of folks would think that's what was up, panic attack. It's sitting next to Johnny Carson, their idol.
That's totally different than the fear that OCD injects into my life, which is terror.
He would go on to star in the TV drama St. Elsewhere.
That's Dr. Corky.
He was the voice of Gizmo and Gremlins. And Bobby, in Bobby's world. His daytime talk show. He had a short run, years went by, and then just as he considered bowing out of show business altogether, the phone call. At first considered an insult.
Your wife called this one up, right? Yeah, I always just take the deal.
Mandel tells us he never could have predicted the show's success, an audience of nearly 20 million viewers an episode. Nor did he imagine he'd ever be talking about his mental illness.
You dropped the pill. Yeah.
As our camera rolls,
Right here.
he drops the one anxiety pill he brought with him to the set.
I don't want you to touch the floor, and I won't touch the floor. It's coming out like crazy. Why? I'm not gonna take it.
To this day, Mandel is in therapy and on medication for the anxiety that comes with his OCD. He won't say which kind because he knows the millions of adults suffering from OCD are also looking for a cure-all. For him, this latest medication came after working with his own doctor, therapist.
But you only grow one pill from the hotel.
Yeah.
So that means to go without it rather than having one pill that you have.
Right.
This is precisely the kind of moment Howie Mandel kept secret for so many years, until he let it slip, his battle against OCD on the Howard Stern Show.
No, I've got a germ thing. What is your victory? You're doing this disease? You're doing sick?
Yeah. Did you want to take it back? Immediately, it was devastating to me. I was incredibly embarrassed, and I thought I humiliated my family, and I thought that this is going to be the end of my career because people are going to know that I do have mental health issues. It was like, what did I just do? What did I do? What did I do? It wasn't funny.
It wasn't funny, but it was real. And like with 40 million American adults who suffer from anxiety disorders, Mandel's began when he was just a child. He remembers as far back as 6 years old.
They would make fun of me because I couldn't touch my shit. Well, I could, but I didn't want to touch it. But I don't want to stay up for me to touch it because it's dirty. So I didn't.
The battle in his mind was constant.
I had like a fight going on inside. I gotta wash my hands, I feel filthy, I haven't taken enough time to shower, or, you know, there's something still crawling on me.
Wasn't really committing money anymore.
Mandel is aware of the children we reported on here after documenting their struggle with OCD for more than a year. Their own fears observed and become debilitating. Like Bridget, afraid of germs from her own family, unable to sit on the same couch as her mother. There was Michelle, who spent hours in the shower under the scalding water.
I put her in the shower and she just sat on the floor and rocked and cried.
And there was Rocco, who begs his mother to reassure him every day that he won't get sick at school.
Honey, I don't know what you're saying. I don't remember what I said about today. You'll have a great day. Why did you do this? It's gonna come with it.
Mandel sees himself in those children. He said he was an outcast in school, his humor outbound. Expelled from high school, he never finished. But he would find the stage a place for his comedy, and a young woman who found his brand of humor charming. 30 years later, she sits beside him as his wife, and both remember the title of his first featured act, Borderline Psychotic. When you look back at that marquee, how did they know?
Yeah, exactly.
Do you remember the first time you saw the rubber glove?
Yes. I thought it was nuts, but I thought it was hysterical.
But even then, the rubber gloves were no joke, carrying them for more than that. And you knew that at the time.
We didn't know it was OCD then, but I did know that he took a lot of showers. He had certain rituals that he did that I didn't know what it was.
She also didn't know it would get worse. In describing what life is like, Mandel pointed us to the movie The Aviator. Remembering the portrayal of Howard Hughes, he said, there were striking similarities.
Yeah, he ends up naked, the world locked away, urinating into a bottle. And he doesn't want to face the world, and I said, you know, there are times, and I'm not exactly around that close to that.
How many times do you think have you been that close to that scene? Kind of trapped in a room.
There's some moments in a month when it's just hard, to go out or, face anything.
A couple of times a month, paralyzed by his fears, and we wondered, how was he able to be a father? How did he raise two children?
That was tough. It was tough. The kids, when they're falling on the floor, everything, it was so hard for him.
And there was this, a second house built in the backyard for Mandel, to escape the germs of his own family. A solitary place where only Howie Mandel could go.
And it's embarrassing, it's hard, especially for your child. We have constantly told the kids, Daddy's behavior in those moments is not something to be emulated.
Are you able to hug, kiss, touch?
Hug, kiss, do everything. It's just for whatever reason, it's the hands. It's the hands. I mean, if somebody's sick, I'll leave the room.
Even the kids. If the kids are sick.
Yeah, well, if the kids are sick, I'll put on a mask. When my wife's sick, I won't sleep in the same room. And I don't eat in the same room. I care for them. And I'll be here, but
It's not here down the hall. You wonder if the kids thought you were a surgeon at one point.
I think I would be somewhat trying to be a little bit entertaining.
But there aren't many now you walk around the house.
Yeah, but you know what? The truth of the matter is, whoever your dad is, or whoever your family is, that's your norm.
As parents, they chronicled the family trips, but the whole trip was never captured on video.
Look over here, Jackie. My daughter is a teenager, and she crossed her leg, and the bottom of her shoe touched his leg. And we were like halfway to the airport. And he starts saying, you gotta take me home, because that was on the floor, and the floor is dirty, and it touched his pants, so we can up the germs on his leg.
Alright. So that is Howie Mandel's situation. Somebody hit those lights for me. It's through the two buttons on the right. Perfect. So that's Howie's story right there. But he's not the only one that lives life like that. Adults, kids, there are a lot of people who are unfortunately trying to struggle or live with their compulsions. So I believe there's one question on the test about Howie, I believe, so that's why it's important to see that. So do a little bit more, and then look at other celebrities, oh my goodness, who have OCD.
Oh, not Trump.
Yes, Trump. Let's start with Leonardo DiCaprio. According to ABC News, he was obsessed with sidewalks when he was little. And then he played the character Howard Hughes in a movie called The Aviator. When there was a picture of him urinating in a bottle, that was that movie, The Aviator. So literally, he was playing a person with OCD, and playing that person brought back his childhood obsessions. They came back and were worse, because he was playing a character who had OCD, and he had OCD. Right next to him, one of the biggest female actresses in our world today, Charlize Theron, the South African actress, revealed in the Irish Independent newspaper that she needs to always organize everything around her. Our former and current president, Donald Trump, he said in an interview, an older interview back in 2017, he claims to have borderline obsessive compulsive disorder because he has a strong fear of germs. You already know Howie Mandel's story, you just saw the video, and Howard Stern, the national DJ who interviewed Howie, he wrote in his book, Miss America, that he has also experienced OCD. By the way, Trump may have some other diagnoses that I don't want to get into right now, because some of these may be but there's some other conditions. I'm actually gonna, later on, I'm gonna say what I think he has when we get to personality disorders. So we'll say that. Okay, what is the cause of anxiety disorder? Disorders, remember it's a big umbrella, or even OCD. There's no single reason. It could be genetic, it could be the nervous system, it could be differences in the brain. They don't know why some people have this issue. You saw a little girl, like she scalds herself, she literally burns herself in the shower. It's just tough to understand why this is happening. Okay, I'm not gonna spend time with somatic symptom disorders, but that involves people who fear they're gonna get sick, or they get conversion disorder where they're actually so worried about it that their actual physical disturbance does actually happen. You know, time of that. But let me show you one more quick video. So there's a condition called dissociative identity disorder. It's known as DID. A person displays characteristics of two or more distinct personalities. Back in the day, this was called multiple personality disorder. That's what it used to be called. Something else where they changed the name to DID. It's a very controversial. So literally we're talking about a person who identifies as more than one person. Did anyone see a movie called Split? Okay. Who's seen Split? Okay. We're going to end the class. I'm going to show you a trailer of Split to let you know what it may look like for somebody who has multiple personalities, or DID. Now, this is of course a movie, so it's going to be really exaggerated and over the top. So just know that. And it's really over the top. But oh, by the way, I should warn you right now, the clip is a little creepy. If you have not seen, who has seen the movie Split? One,
Not me.
2, 3, 4. Okay, most of you have not. Okay. That's why I'm warning you right now that it might be a little. The trailer is creepy to me. I did see the movie. It is a good movie. If you don't mind being scared. All right. Letting this commercial run, and I'm gonna pull it up. I'm gonna leave the lights on because it's a little creepy. I'm just kidding. But once again, this is somebody who believes, somebody who not just believes, but they have different sides to them. Yeah, I'm gonna leave the lights on here.
I was sent to get you for a reason.
There's a flower on the post, a flower in the bathroom. Like, we're important.
The only chance we have is if all three of us go crazy on this guy.
Who is that? Maybe she can help us.
Don't worry. He's not allowed to touch you. He knows what you're here for. He listens to me.
My name's Hedwig.
How old are you?
9.
I've never seen a case like this before. 23 identities live in Kevin's body. Who are you? Help me get out of here, Henry.
You trying to shoot me? I'll tell you.
Aren't you terrible?
An individual with multiple personalities can change their body chemistry with their thoughts.
Someone's coming for you.
Who's coming?
The beast.
There's a man here. He abducted us and he's going to kill me. We're meant for something. Something horrible.
The world will understand now. The beast is real. He's done awful things to people, and he'll do awful things to you.
And there you go. DID, dissociative identity disorder. It's a fictional movie, so it's exaggerated, but his character played all these different people, and he was actually in therapy too. The therapist sometimes would be talking to a different person during his therapy sessions. Yes.
Because you're right, they are over-exaggerated. I feel like it's a slap in the face when people because they're portraying, one of his personalities is serial killer.
Absolutely, yes. One of his personalities is literally called the Beast, and the Beast kills. Yeah, that is definitely that. But there have been, it's really interesting because it's really controversial because DID only appears to only be present in America. Like other countries have very limited reports of people with multiple personality disorder. Really? Some people actually feel that some therapists may promote it by saying, who am I talking to now? Is there a name for this part of your personality I'm talking to? So some people feel like the power of suggestion takes place. But then there's also reports of people knowing how to do certain things or having certain information based upon that different personality. They're like, how do they know that? Because it's different. So it's a very, like I said, it's a very, very controversial diagnosis, but it will be a diagnosis that will be on the test. So, and that's why it is very controversial because it hasn't even been around that long. And so that's part of it. Okay, real quick, we're gonna stop here, but make sure you sign the attendance sheet. There's one there. 2, please know that the engagement assignment and the midterm assessment are in Blackboard. And your next set of quizzes are due next Tuesday, the 10th, of next Monday, okay? So we will continue with this chapter on Thursday. I'm gonna try to finish as much of it as possible. And otherwise, everybody have a great rest of the day, and hopefully I'll see you on Thursday.
what will it be?